And so our focal point is very much around understanding how we can genuinely help people, and and you can only do that if you really look under the skin.
This is Velocitize Talks, and I'm Eric Jones. I'm here with Dan Pankraz, the head of innovation of Leo Burnett Australia. Dan, great to have you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about Diner. And what it is and how it sort of ladders up into Leo Burnett overall.
Yep, no problem. So the Diner is basically, we're kind of calling it a business design consultancy, and its kind of purpose or reason for existence is to look at how we can future-proof the growth of our client partners, and look at the outputs that it's been in existence for a bit under a year. And what we're actually doing with it is really focusing on how we can create new marketing ventures, new products and services for our clients that are solving their really tricky big business problems, those problems that keep our clients up at night that might not necessarily be communication or brand problems that they would typically come to a creative agency for. So our goal is to really ensure that the ideas and the business solutions we were creating, whether it be a new marketing venture or a new product or service, was anchored in behavioral science, but then I guess turbocharged with the great creativity that has made our brand famous for 70 years. So it was really the end result for Leo Burnett is that we have a business unit that can really deliver high velocity innovation thinking for our clients, but done in a way that's really anchored in behavioral science and infusing that with creativity.
What is it that you think the behavioral science brings to that sort of process of innovation that clients themselves oftentimes didn't necessarily have?
Yeah, I mean, I think oftentimes when clients are looking at a business problem, they have a really good grasp of the market dynamics and the industry or category, but they might have a surface level view on what is happening in culture and in the consumer's kind of current day-to-day behavior. So we spend quite a lot of time unpacking the real kind of more motivations, the need states, and do that through a wide variety of kind of different ethnographic type research techniques, which are not uncommon in other kind of design industries. But I guess what we're trying to really do is unlock where the big opportunity spaces are for brands to play. And I guess coming from a creative agency background, we know how brands grow and build, and we're trying to make sure we really apply that to these problems and that consumer understanding that traditionally a lot of clients kind of almost jump to the solution before really understanding what's that big people problem.
There has been an explosion in channels today in marketing. How do you help clients navigate that sort of complexity and confusion? What are some of the principles or processes that you oftentimes employ to help them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question, and it is a really difficult environment for a modern marketer to navigate where to focus on. Generally, obviously it's bespoke to different brands depending on their life stage and which categories they sit in. But we certainly adhere to fewer, bigger, better. And as opposed to really fragmenting messages and how the brand kind of behaves, really ensuring that we have kind of coherent, consistent, but culturally impactful both messages and brand behaviors at all touch points. So there obviously has been a big growth in dynamic creativity and how you can obviously unpack lots of different messages for different parts of the funnel, the decision-making funnel, and certainly we look to understand what are the need states for consumers at different stages in that decision-making journey. But we also, very much subscribe to the Ehrenberg Bass Institute of reach and frequency and bringing in a lot of new users and reaching as many people as possible.
You touched on it a little bit earlier. More and more technology, a lot of it's becoming commoditized, and yet nearly every company is, their sort of knee-jerk reaction is to think, compete on the basis of technology, and not necessarily thinking about customer experience and the customer journey. When you counsel clients, how do you help them rethink that customer journey so that there's, sort of magic and delight at every touch point?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think one of the things that we have at Leo Burnett is a philosophy that we've had for many years, which is this thought around kind of humankind, and it might sound cliched, but it's based on the premise that our founder came up with, I think, 70 years ago, which was what helps people helps business. And so our focal point is very much around understanding how we can genuinely help people. And and you can only do that if you really look under the skin of the obvious and look for genuine insights and where those real kind of pain points are, because often clients, as I mentioned earlier, my first response is they're jumping into solutions. And I very much think about what we do as much about creative problem solving, but it's also the problem finding. And the problem finding bit only really comes when you've got a really good grasp of that consumer behavior.
Also on the human side, Leo Burnett is celebrated for its culture. In your hiring decisions, how are you selecting for people that will be additive to that culture?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think people that come to us and we're, I guess, are magnetic towards our brand are people that are first fundamentally driven by kind of a desire to be creative and curious about the world, about culture. So we are always looking for people that ask why, and a culture that doesn't take the first answer. We kind of we really push to create the unexpected. So we need people that have that kind of similar kind of mindset where they're always looking for interesting ways to solve problems, to come up with ideas. So, certainly, and many other companies have this philosophy, we want creativity and that imagination of magic to be very much why you get up in the morning, but then apply that through a commercial lens.
You do all sorts of, along the lines of youth marketing, you do all sorts of workshops for the youth with design thinking.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you're teaching them in terms of how to apply design thinking to various challenges or problems?
So what I decided to do, about a year ago, I put a post out on Facebook within my local community to offer up some of my time to run a kind of design thinking workshop for 20 kids, teenagers, to solve a problem that was important to them. And I thought I'd have 10 or so responses. I had 300 within half a day, so there was certainly a demand for it. And I was lucky enough to collaborate with some other great design professionals who gave up their time. I kind of built out a workshop experience, but the focus was less about how can you create the next cool app to make money. It was far more around looking at problems affecting our community, their community themselves. And I've done it at numerous schools here in Sydney, and we're working on problems, design problems like how might we make a school more inclusive for children with autism. Was one. There was some, social causes, environmental causes. So, and I think anchoring it in a challenge that they're seeing in popular culture makes it all the more real.
Do you think on the empathy, issue that because of their comfort with digital, that maybe they struggle a little bit on the empathy front? Or
absolutely, I think we read it every day in the papers around this younger people. When I'm saying younger, 25 and below, having grown up with screens and spending so much time addicted to the screens, and there's no doubt that they've lost that interpersonal relationship skills and being able to actually talk to people. So, for example, when I ran the workshop and we were really looking at that autism challenge, and I was working with 10 or about 20 boys aged kind of 10 to 12, and we brought in 4 autistic students from other schools, and they got to basically interview them and ask them how they feel when they're being discriminated or how they feel at home, and their eyes really opened because they first of all it got them out of their comfort zone, but it just changed their perception versus what they see on a YouTube video.
Brands, so people, especially Gen Z, they want to join brands today. They don't necessarily want to buy from them.
Yep.
To your point about herd mentality, right? Like we all want to be a part of something bigger than just ourselves.
I think it's interesting you say it because the symbols of traditional, for younger people, those symbols of things that you can belong to are few and far between now because of the the division in culture and politics, and and it's not just in the US, it's here in Australia. Everything seems to be getting further and further apart. And I think what that means for brands is that young people are looking for symbols, markers, identity markers that they can attach themselves to, and whether or not that's their heroes or influencers that they can align themselves to. And the brands that are create that sense of community around what they champion and what they believe in, invite people in to have their say. I think of the brands that develop that kind of fellowship that's important in today's day and age, where it's so easy to switch.
Dan, one of the questions we love asking our guests is a book or podcast that you'd like to recommend for our viewers.
Yeah, good question. I mean, a book I'm reading at the moment that I'm finding fascinating is called Frame Innovation, and it's by Kien Doost, who's a Dutch academic, and it's a really fascinating book around how design thinking and creative problem solving, but applying really different lenses to understanding problem solving. Often, the key thing for me out of that book was that often we take problems at face value, and we really don't look at other analogies of other categories or other systems that have had similar problems. And I think it taught me a lot about how to frame a problem in the right way that can then unlock really different, divergent and lateral ways of problem solving. I think that's, for me, the biggest challenge with innovation today is there's a lot of literal innovation going. And what I mean by that is it's just little, marginal incremental improvements to experiences, and that's fine, and that can deliver value for consumers and for brands. But I think where the big leaps are made is where there's more lateral thinking.
That was Dan Pankraz, the head of innovation at Leo Burnett Australia.